The blizzard had buried the mountain when Senna found the dying wolf. She should have left him there. Everyone knew that wounded predators were the most dangerous kind, and this one was massive, larger than any wolf she'd ever seen, with fur as black as midnight, and eyes that flickered gold even as his life bled into the snow. But Senna had stopped listening to what everyone knew a long time ago. So she dragged him into her cabin, pressed her forbidden hands against his wounds, and did what the world had branded her a monster for doing. She healed him. By dawn, the wolf was gone. In his place lay a man, impossibly tall, devastatingly beautiful, and unmistakably royal. The crest of Valdrin was scarred into his shoulder. She had saved the Alpha King. Theron woke to find his curse slowed for the first time in months. The ice that had been crawling through his veins, freezing him from the inside out, had retreated. And the woman responsible for this miracle was the very creature his kingdom had been taught to fear. A plague bringer, a death-touched healer, a monster in exile. He should have killed her on sight. Instead, he made her an offer she couldn't refuse. Come to his palace. Let him study her gift. Help him survive long enough to destroy the enemies who'd poisoned him. In exchange, he'd give her protection, safety, a life beyond her frozen isolation. But he warned her from the beginning. He could never love her. His curse wouldn't allow it. What neither of them understood was that fate had already chosen differently. And by the time they realized the truth, it would be far too late to stop what was coming. The blizzard screamed across the mountain like a living thing, hungry and relentless. Senna pulled her cloak tighter and squinted through the wall of white. 3 years of exile had taught her to read these storms, to know when the mountain wanted her dead and when it merely wanted her afraid. Tonight, it wanted blood. Foolish, she muttered to herself, her breath crystallizing instantly. Absolutely foolish. But the herbs wouldn't gather themselves, and the widow in the village below needed moonveil root for her cough. Senna couldn't heal her directly. She'd never risk touching anyone again. But she could leave medicine at the boundary stone where the villagers collected it after she'd gone. That was her life now, helping from the shadows, healing without hands, existing without being seen. She was 200 paces from her cabin when she saw the blood, crimson against white, stark as a wound in flesh. The trail led from the eastern ridge, weaving drunkenly between the snow-laden pines before disappearing into a drift near the ravine's edge. Every instinct screamed at her to walk away. Blood meant predators. Predators meant death. And death had followed Senna too closely for her to invite it now. But then she heard it. A low, broken sound that might have been a whimper if it hadn't come from something so large. She crept forward, her gloved hand finding the knife at her belt. The drift shifted. Snow cascaded away to reveal black fur matted with ice and gore. A wolf. No, not just a wolf. This creature was enormous, easily twice the size of the timber wolves that roamed these peaks. Its fur was the deep, impossible black of a moonless night, and even wounded, even dying, it radiated a presence that made the air feel heavier. Its eyes opened, gold, burning molten gold that fixed on her with an intelligence no ordinary animal possessed. Senna's blood turned to ice. She knew those eyes. Every child in Valdrin grew up fearing them. Shifter, she breathed. The wolf's lips peeled back from teeth like daggers, but the snarl that emerged was weak, wet, wrong. Blood bubbled at the corner of its maw. It was dying. Senna's hand trembled on her knife. She should run. She should let the mountain claim this creature the way it had claimed so many others. Shifters were dangerous. Alpha shifters were catastrophic. And this one, judging by its size and the raw power bleeding off its broken form, was no ordinary wolf. But something else stirred beneath her terror. Something she'd spent 3 years trying to bury. The healer's instinct. It recognized the rattle in the wolf's breathing, punctured lung, likely from the deep gashes across its ribs. It catalogued the unnatural blue tinge spreading beneath the black fur. Poison, or something worse. It screamed at her that this creature had hours at most before its massive heart stopped. "No," Senna whispered. "I can't. I'll kill you, like I killed the others." The wolf's golden eyes never wavered from her face, and improbably, it did something she'd never seen a wounded predator do. It lowered its head. Submission. Trust. A plea from a creature that surely understood what she was, what the brand hidden beneath her gloves meant. "You don't know what you're asking," she said, her voice cracking. "I'm death. Everything I touch dies." The wolf exhaled slowly, blood misting in the frozen air. Its eyes began to dim. Senna made her choice. She sheathed her knife and knelt in the crimson snow. Her gloves came off, exposing the black marks that spiraled across her palms like burned vines. The plague brand, seared into her flesh the day they'd cast her out. The moment her bare hands touched the wolf's fur, warmth flooded through her. That familiar, terrible warmth that had once made her a prodigy and now made her a pariah. "If this kills you," she whispered, "at least you won't die alone." She closed her eyes and let her power pour into the dying beast. The world turned white. Senna came back to consciousness slowly, aware first of the cold stone floor beneath her cheek, then of the fire crackling weakly in her cabin's hearth, then of the massive weight pressing against her back. The wolf. She dragged him inside somehow. The details were hazy. She remembered the storm, the impossible weight of him, the way her power had surged and writhed as it fought to repair damage that should have been irreparable. She remembered falling through her door, remembered nothing after that. Carefully, she extracted herself from the wolf's bulk and turned to assess her work. Her breath caught. The wounds were closed. Not just closed, healed, pink skin showing through the gaps in his fur where hours ago there had been bone-deep gashes. His breathing was even, deep, unlabored. "Impossible," Senna whispered. In 3 years, she hadn't dared use her power on anything living. Plants, yes. Water, occasionally, but never a creature with a heartbeat. Never anything that could prove whether the plague had been her fault or simply her curse. And yet, this wolf lived. Her hands shook as she held them up to the firelight. The brand still coiled across her palms, dark and damning. But no corruption spread from her fingertips. No black rot crawled up her arms. The wolf's massive head lifted. Those gold eyes fixed on her again, and something in them had changed. They were clearer now, more aware, more human. "What are you?" Senna breathed. The wolf's body began to convulse. Senna scrambled backward, her spine hitting the wall as the creature's form twisted and writhed. Bones cracked like dry timber. Fur rippled and receded. The sound was horrific. Wet and organic and wrong. And Senna couldn't look away. Where the wolf had been, a man now lay. He was naked, trembling, his skin pale as fresh snow except where old scars crossed his flesh like a map of violence. His hair was black and fell past his shoulders in a tangled cascade. His features were sharp, severe, and beautiful in the way a blade was beautiful. And on his left shoulder, unmistakable even in the dim firelight, was the royal crest of Valdrin. The sleeping man was the Alpha King. Senna pressed her fist against her mouth to stifle the scream building in her throat. She had touched him. She had used her forbidden power on the ruler of the realm that had branded her a monster. If he woke, when he woke, he would know exactly what she was, and then he would kill her. She should run. Now, tonight, into the storm if she had to. She could disappear into the mountains, find another peak, another exile, another... The Alpha King's eyes opened. Gold met gray. "You," he rasped, his voice like gravel over glass. "You're the one." Before Senna could flee, before she could even breathe, his hand shot out and locked around her wrist. And she felt it. The cold emanating from his skin, spreading into her own flesh, so deep and wrong it made her bones ache. The Alpha King was freezing from the inside out. Senna tried to pull away, but his grip was iron despite his weakness. "Let go of me," she gasped. "Not until you tell me what you did." The Alpha King's voice was stronger now, though his body still trembled against the cold stone floor. My chest. The poison. It was spreading. I could feel it reaching my heart. His gold eyes blazed in the firelight. "And then you touched me, and it stopped." Senna's pulse hammered against his fingers. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me." He pulled her closer, and she saw it then. The unnatural pallor of his skin, the faint blue veins visible at his throat, the way his breath misted even in the warmth of her cabin. "I've been dying for 6 months. No healer in Valdrin could even slow it down. But you—" His eyes dropped to her hands and his grip tightened. "Show me your palms." "No." "Show me." It wasn't a request. The Alpha command rolled through the small space like thunder, pressing against her will, demanding submission. Senna felt her wolf, the small, broken thing she'd neglected for years, whimper and try to obey. But Senna had spent 3 years learning to be alone. 3 years without a pack, without an alpha, without anyone to command her. She met his golden gaze and didn't move. Something flickered across the Alpha King's face. Surprise, perhaps. Or curiosity. "You're strong," he said slowly. "Stronger than you look. Let go." For a long moment he simply studied her. Then, deliberately, he released her wrist. Senna scrambled backward until her back hit the cabin wall again. Her heart was racing, her skin still burning where he'd touched her. She could feel the residual cold he'd left behind, an aching chill that seemed to go deeper than flesh. "What's happening to you?" she demanded. "What kind of poison does that?" "It's not poison." The Alpha King pushed himself up to a sitting position, and even that small movement seemed to cost him. "It's a curse. Ice magic, woven into my blood by someone who wanted to make sure I died slowly, painfully." A bitter smile crossed his lips. They succeeded admirably. Senna's mind raced. Ice magic was rare, forbidden in most kingdoms because of its corrupting influence on shifters. "Who did this to you?" "That's what I intend to find out." His eyes fixed on her again with that unnerving intensity. "After you tell me how you stopped it." "I didn't do anything." "You're lying." He said it without anger, simply stating fact. "I felt my heart freezing, felt the ice reaching for it like fingers. And then you put your hands on me, and it retreated. For the first time in 6 months, I can breathe without pain." He tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle he intended to solve. "What are you?" The question landed like a blow. Senna's hands curled into fists, hiding the brand she knew he'd already seen. "I'm nobody. Just a hermit who made the mistake of helping a dying wolf." "A hermit?" His gaze swept the cabin, the dried herbs hanging from the rafters, the carefully labeled jars on the shelves, the mortar and pestle worn smooth from use. "With a healer's supplies, and the plague brand on her palms." His eyes returned to hers, sharp as knives. "You're the Deathbringer, the one they exiled after the Thornwick plague." Senna stopped breathing. She should have known she couldn't hide it. The brand was impossible to conceal forever, and a king, even a dying one, would know the stories. Everyone in Valdrin knew the stories. The girl with the healing touch who'd turned corrupted. The prodigy whose gift had twisted into something monstrous. The monster who'd killed 47 people with nothing but the press of her hands. "I should kill you," the Alpha King said quietly. "Then do it." The words tore out of her. "I'm tired of running, tired of hiding. If you want me dead, just do it quickly." But he didn't move. Instead, he tilted his head again, that curious expression deepening. You healed me. A mistake. You saved my life. I told you, I thought you were a wolf. An ordinary. No one touches a bleeding predator unless they intend to heal it. His voice softened by a fraction. You could have let me die. You chose not to. Why? Because I'm weak. Because the healer's instinct is stronger than my fear. Because I'm tired of being alone with nothing but ghosts. Because I'm a fool, she said instead. Something shifted in his expression. For a moment he almost looked human. Perhaps. He extended his hand toward her, not grabbing this time, simply offering. Show me your palms, healer. Please. The please caught her off guard. Kings didn't say please, especially not dying kings with ice magic crawling through their veins. Against every instinct, Senna uncurled her fingers and turned her hands upward. The firelight caught the brands, black spiraling marks that traced from her palms up to her wrists, like burned vines frozen in their reaching. In the center of each palm, the plague symbol pulsed with a darkness that seemed to drink the light. The Alpha King leaned forward. His cold fingers traced the edge of one spiral, and Senna flinched at the contact. These aren't plague marks, he said slowly. Of course they are. The council branded me themselves after. I've seen plague marks. His voice was flat, certain. On the bodies of those who actually carried the corruption. This is different. This is... He turned her hand toward the light, studying the patterns with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. This is binding magic. What? Someone sealed your power. He looked up at her, and for the first time, something other than cold assessment burned in his gold eyes. These brands aren't proof of what you are. They're chains. Someone locked your true ability away and made it look like contamination. Senna's world tilted. No. She pulled her hands back. That's not possible. I felt the plague move through me. I watched people die after I touched them. Did you? The Alpha King pushed himself to his feet, swaying slightly before steadying. Even wounded, even cursed, he towered over her. Did you actually watch them die? Or did you wake up one morning to find them already dead and believe what you were told? The memory hit her like a physical blow. The village, the screaming, the bodies already cooling when she'd emerged from her fever, her hands marked with those spiraling brands. Her stepmother Dilara standing over her, face twisted with grief and fury, telling her what she'd done, what she'd become, what she'd destroyed. Senna's voice broke. I don't. Someone wanted you to believe you were a monster. The Alpha King's voice was quiet now, almost gentle. Someone branded you with binding marks and called them plague signs. Someone made very sure you'd never use your true power again. Why would anyone do that? I don't know. He held her gaze, and despite the cold radiating from him, something warm flickered in those golden depths. But I intend to find out. And you're going to help me. Senna took a step back. I'm not going anywhere with you. You don't have a choice. I always have a choice. Do you? He gestured to the window where dawn was beginning to stain the blizzard pink. The storm will clear by midday. When it does, the men who tried to kill me will come looking for my body. When they find me alive and find you here, they will assume you're my ally. They will kill you slowly and painfully, and no amount of hiding in this mountain will save you. Her blood ran cold. You're lying. I'm the Alpha King of Valdrin. I don't need to lie. He took a step toward her, then another, until they stood close enough that she could see the frost forming on his eyelashes. You healed me. You slowed the curse when no one else could. That makes you valuable, to me and to my enemies. The only question now is which side gets to use you. I won't be used by anyone. Then die here, alone, when they burn your cabin down around you. He shrugged, but something desperate lurked beneath his casual cruelty. Or come with me to Valdrin. Let me protect you while we find out who did this. To both of us. Help me survive long enough to destroy my enemies, and I'll give you the truth about your power. And why should I trust you? You shouldn't. His smile was thin and sharp. But I'm offering you something no one else will. A chance to stop running. A chance to discover what you really are. He extended his hand to her, palm up, vulnerable. What do you say, healer? Will you save my life a second time? Senna stared at his outstretched hand, at the king who should have killed her on sight, at the dying man whose curse had retreated at her touch. 3 years ago, she would have refused. She would have chosen isolation, exile, the slow death of loneliness over the risk of trusting anyone. But 3 years was a long time to be alone. A long time to wonder if the monster she believed herself to be was really the truth. If I come with you, she said slowly, I have conditions. His eyebrow arched. You're bargaining with your king? I'm bargaining with a man who needs me alive. She met his golden stare without flinching. That makes us equals, at least for now. That almost smile flickered across his face again. Name your terms. You don't touch me without my permission. You don't command me. And the moment I want to leave, you let me go. Agreed. Just like that? I told you, healer. You're valuable to me alive and willing. Dead or enslaved, you're useless. He withdrew his hand. We leave when the storm clears. They descended the mountain in silence. The blizzard had cleared as the Alpha King, Theron, she'd learned, predicted, leaving the world transformed into a glittering expanse of white. Theron moved ahead of her through the snow, wearing clothes she'd pieced together from her meager supplies. A too-tight shirt that strained across his shoulders, trousers that ended above his ankles, a cloak that had belonged to her father before his death. He should have looked ridiculous. He didn't. Even wounded, even cursed, even dressed in a dead man's clothing, the Alpha King moved like a predator. Every step was deliberate. Every glance assessed threat levels she couldn't perceive. Someone's coming, he said quietly, pausing mid-stride. Senna's hand found her knife. How many? 4. His eyes closed, and she watched his wolf rise to the surface, gold bleeding into the gray of his irises. Coming fast, a mile out, maybe less. Can you shift? Not without speeding the curse. Fighting in human form is possible, but... He looked at her, and for the first time she saw fear beneath his cold composure. If I die here, you need to run. Don't stop until you reach the coast. You're not going to die. You don't know that. I healed you once. Senna met his golden stare, her own fear crystallizing into something harder. I can do it again if I have to. Something shifted in his expression. Why? You don't owe me anything. You don't even know me. Because you're the first person in 3 years who looked at my brands and didn't run. Because you made me believe I might not be a monster. Because I'm tired of being alone with my ghosts. Because you're my best chance at answers, she said instead. And I'm not letting that chance die on this mountain. Before he could respond, a howl split the morning air. Close, too close. Theron's face hardened into battle lines. Into the trees. Now. They ran. The forest swallowed them within seconds, snow-laden branches closing behind them like a curtain. Senna's lungs burned as she fought to keep pace with Theron's longer stride. Another howl, closer still. Then another. And another. They're hurting us, Theron snarled, driving us toward the ravine. They burst from the tree line onto the ravine's edge. Below, jagged rocks formed a deadly maze. Above, a mining entrance gaped like a wound in the mountainside. Between them and safety stood 4 wolves, and behind them, still in human form, stood a man Senna didn't recognize. He was handsome in a cruel way, with close-cropped silver hair and a scar that bisected his left eyebrow. He wore the black leathers of a royal courier, but the crest on his chest wasn't Valdrin's. Your Majesty, The man's smile was sharp as a blade. How disappointing to find you still breathing. Aldrich? Theron's voice could have frozen fire. I should have known. Senna's mind raced. Aldrich. She knew that name. The king's uncle. His father's younger brother, who had served as royal advisor for 20 years. You look unwell, nephew. Aldrich's gaze swept over Theron with obvious pleasure. The curse is progressing, I see. Another week, maybe 2, and the ice will finally reach that cold heart of yours. You did this. It wasn't a question. I commissioned it. The witch who actually wove the curse was quite talented. Aldrich's eyes slid to Senna, and she felt them like a physical touch. Oily, invasive, and wrong. And who is this? A local peasant? No. His nostrils flared. A healer. How interesting. Theron shifted, placing himself between Senna and his uncle. Run, now. She's not going anywhere. Aldrich's smile widened. Actually, she might be exactly what I need. The witch who cursed you warned me about a complication. A certain type of healer, rare, practically extinct, whose power might counter the ice. I've been hunting for one for months. His eyes fixed on Senna with hungry intensity. What are the odds that my dear nephew would find one on his own? Senna's blood turned to ice. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Aldrich took a step forward, and the wolves flanking him growled in unison. Show me your hands, girl. Don't. Theron's command cracked through the air like a whip. His wolf was rising now, golden eyes blazing, frost crackling across his skin as the curse responded to his rage. Touch her, and I'll tear out your throat. With what strength? Aldrich laughed. You can barely stand, nephew. The curse has almost finished what I started. All I have to do is wait. The wolves began to circle, spreading out to cut off any escape. Senna counted heartbeats. 4 wolves. 1 curse-weakened king. 1 healer who hadn't fought anything in 3 years. They were going to die here. Unless... Her hands tingled. The brands on her palms pulsed with warmth she hadn't felt since the mountain. Unless the Alpha King was right about what she really was. Theron, she whispered. I need you to trust me. What are you... Trust me. She didn't wait for his answer. She stepped around him, placing herself directly between the dying king and the wolves that wanted to finish him. Her branded hands came up, palms outward, and for the first time in 3 years, Senna stopped fighting her power and let it free. Light exploded from her hands, not the sickly darkness she'd been taught to fear, but something brilliant and golden, warm as summer, pure as morning. The wolves howled in pain and scrambled backward, their fur smoking where the light had touched them. Aldrich's face twisted from smug certainty to raw shock. Impossible, he breathed. You're supposed to be bound. She said you were... She was wrong. Senna's voice rang with a power she didn't recognize, couldn't control, and didn't understand. The light spread from her hands up her arms, burning away the spiraling brands like ash in the wind. Beneath them, her skin was unmarked. Clean. Free. Aldrich's wolves fled into the trees, whimpering. The man himself stumbled backward, his composure finally cracking. This isn't over, he snarled. You have no idea what you've just started. Then he shifted, a blur of gray fur and fury, and vanished into the forest after his pack. Senna's legs gave out. Strong arms caught her before she hit the ground. Cold arms, trembling arms, but gentle despite their chill. You magnificent fool, Theron murmured against her hair. You absolute, reckless, magnificent fool. Senna tried to respond, but the world was dimming at the edges. The power she'd released had taken something vital with it. The last thing she heard before darkness claimed her was the Alpha King's voice, raw with an emotion she couldn't name. Stay with me, healer. I'm not done with you yet. Senna woke to warmth. It was such a foreign sensation that for a moment she simply lay there, letting it sink into her bones. Her cabin on the mountain had never been truly warm. The fire could only do so much against the endless cold, and fuel was always scarce. But this warmth wrapped around her like an embrace. She opened her eyes. The ceiling above her was vaulted stone, hung with tapestries depicting wolves running beneath a crescent moon. Firelight danced across the woven scenes, making the wolves seem alive. Not her cabin, not the mountain. Memory flooded back. The wolves. Aldrich. The light that had exploded from her hands like a dam breaking. The brands burning away to reveal unmarked skin beneath. Easy. A woman's voice, calm and authoritative. You've been unconscious for 2 days. Moving too quickly will only make it worse. Senna turned to find a tall woman with iron-gray hair standing beside the bed. She wore healer's robes, simple white linen with the silver serpent of the medical guild embroidered at the collar. Where am I? Senna's voice came out as a croak. The royal stronghold at Thornhaven. The woman moved closer, pressing cool fingers to Senna's forehead. His Majesty brought you here after your collapse on the mountain. I am Mira, the court healer. Her eyes dropped to Senna's hands, which lay exposed on the silk coverlet. Or perhaps I should say, I was the court healer. It seems my position may be obsolete. Senna looked down. Her palms were smooth, unmarked. The spiraling brands that had defined her existence for 3 years were simply gone, as if they had never existed at all. His Majesty has been rather tight-lipped about what happened on that mountain, Mira continued. All I know is that he carried you through the gates himself, half frozen and barely conscious, and commanded that you be given the finest rooms in the keep. Her eyes narrowed slightly. He also posted 4 of his personal guards outside your door with orders to kill anyone who tries to enter without permission, including me. Senna's mind reeled. He did that? He did. Mira's expression softened by a fraction. In 20 years of serving the crown, I have never seen His Majesty show such concern for anyone. Whatever you did for him on that mountain, girl, it made an impression. Before Senna could respond, the door swung open. Theron stood in the doorway, still wearing the borrowed clothes from her cabin. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and the blue tinge at his temples had spread to his cheekbones. But he was alive, standing, looking at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Leave us, he said to Mira. The healer rose without protest and departed, closing the door softly behind her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Senna was acutely aware of how she must look. Tangled hair, borrowed nightgown, and he was the Alpha King. Even cursed, even dying, he radiated a power that made the air feel thinner. You're awake, Theron said finally. You're observant. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Theron laughed. It was a rough sound, unpracticed, as if he'd forgotten how. But it transformed his face, softening the harsh lines, making him look almost young. There she is. He moved into the room, and Senna noticed he was carrying something, a bundle of fabric in deep green. The woman who bargained with a dying king and won. I didn't win anything. I nearly died. You saved my life. Again. He set the bundle on the foot of her bed. That seems like winning to me. Senna looked at the fabric, then at him. What is that? Clothes. Real ones. Not cast-offs from a dead man's wardrobe. Something flickered across his face. Embarrassment, perhaps. Or something softer. I had them made while you slept. The seamstresses worked through the night. The gesture landed somewhere deep in Senna's chest and stuck there, warm and aching. You didn't have to do that. No, I didn't. He met her eyes, and the gold in his gaze seemed to burn brighter. I wanted to. The court is assembled in the Great Hall. Theron continued, his tone shifting back to business. My uncle's treachery is not yet common knowledge, but it will be soon. I need to address my people before rumors spread. He paused. I want you there. Me? Why? Because you're the reason I'm still alive. Because my enemies need to see that I have a weapon they cannot counter. His jaw tightened. And because Aldrich will have spies in the crowd. I want them to report back that the Deathbringer stands with the crown. The great hall of Thornhaven was a cavern of black stone and burning torches. Senna walked beside Theron through the parting crowd, acutely aware of every whisper, every stare. That's her, someone hissed. The plague girl. She doesn't look like a monster. Senna kept her eyes forward, her spine straight. But then Theron's hand settled at the small of her back. Not grabbing, not commanding, just present. A silent declaration that she was not alone. They ascended the dais at the front of the hall. Theron settled into the massive black throne and gestured to a smaller chair at his right hand. Senna sat. The crowd's murmurs intensified. This was the queen's seat. People of Valdrin. Theron's voice rolled through the hall like thunder, silencing every whisper. 3 days ago, I was attacked on the mountain road. 12 of my warriors died defending me. I would have joined them if not for the woman beside me. Every eye fixed on Senna. She felt the weight of their judgment, their fear, and their hatred. You know her as the Deathbringer, the Plague Girl, the monster of Thornwick. Theron's golden eyes swept the crowd, daring anyone to speak. I know her as the healer who dragged my dying body into her cabin and saved my life. The silence was absolute. Someone in this kingdom conspired to murder your king. Theron's voice hardened to steel. Someone cursed me with ice magic and sent wolves to finish what the curse began. Know this. Anyone who aids my enemies will be destroyed. Anyone who threatens the woman who saved my life will be destroyed. He turned to Senna and extended his hand. This woman is under my protection. She will remain at the palace as my honored guest. Any who object may speak now. Silence. Theron took Senna's hand and raised it high. Long live Valdrin, he declared, and long live the woman who saved its king. The crowd echoed the words, some reluctantly, some with genuine feeling. But Senna barely heard them. She was staring at Theron's fingers wrapped around hers. They were warm. For the first time since she'd met him, his skin wasn't cold. Heat radiated from his palm, sinking into her bones. Whatever she'd done when her power broke free, it was still working. The curse was retreating, and from the look in Theron's golden eyes, he felt it too. The days that followed were a study in contradictions. By day, Senna was the king's honored guest. She dined at his table, walked in his gardens, sat in his council chambers while lords and generals debated strategy. But by night, she was still a monster. The nightmares came every time she closed her eyes. The screaming, the bodies, her stepmother Dilara's voice, cold and final. You did this. You killed them all. On the 4th night, she gave up on sleep entirely. The palace gardens were silver under moonlight, frost glittering on every surface. She didn't expect to find the Alpha King there too. Theron sat on a stone bench beneath a skeletal oak, his head bowed, his shoulders shaking. He was in his shirt sleeves despite the cold, and even from a distance, Senna could see the frost creeping across his skin. The curse. It was spreading again. She should have turned back. Should have left him to his private pain. But instead, she found herself walking forward. Theron's head snapped up. For a heartbeat, his face was raw, fear and agony and despair. Then the mask slammed back into place. You should be asleep, he said. So should you. I don't sleep. Not anymore. He was quiet for a long moment. When I close my eyes, I see them. My warriors. The men who died protecting me. I see the ice closing around my heart, and I wonder if I'll wake up at all. Senna understood that fear better than she wanted to admit. I see them too, she said quietly. The people from Thornwick. 47 faces I can't quite remember. I dream about them every night. Theron turned to look at her. In the moonlight, his eyes were more silver than gold. You still believe you killed them? I don't know what I believe. Senna stared at her unmarked palms. The brands are gone, but the guilt isn't. It wasn't your fault. You don't know that. I know that someone went to great lengths to make you believe you were a monster. Theron's voice hardened. Someone did this to you, Senna. Someone made you believe a lie. Hearing her name on his lips did something strange to her heartbeat. Why do you care? The question emerged before she could stop it. Theron was silent for so long that she thought he wouldn't answer. Because I know what it's like, he said finally. To be blamed for something you didn't do. Senna waited. When I was 16, my mother died. His voice was flat, controlled. Queen Celeste. The official story is that she fell from her horse during a hunt. The truth is that she was poisoned. Slowly, over months. And by the time anyone noticed, it was too late. He turned his face away. My uncle was the one who found the evidence that implicated me. A vial of poison in my chambers. A diary page describing my hatred for her. All fabricated, but convincing enough that half the court believed I'd killed my own mother. Gods, Senna breathed. But you were cleared? My father believed me. He had the evidence examined by independent witches and proved it was planted. A bitter laugh. Aldrich was devastated to learn he'd been deceived. He spent the next 15 years rebuilding my trust. Theron's hands clenched. And all that time, he was waiting, planning. The parallels were too obvious to ignore. Someone had framed Theron for his mother's death. Someone had framed Senna for the Thornwick plague. Aldrich, she said, you think he was involved with what happened to me too? I think it's too much of a coincidence that my uncle cursed me with ice magic, and your power is the only thing that can counter it. Theron's eyes met hers. I don't believe in coincidence, Senna. My stepmother, Senna said slowly. Delara. She was the one who found me after Thornwick. She told me what I'd done. She arranged for the branding, the exile. Her throat tightened. She's the only one who could have bound my power without anyone knowing. Then we need to find her. She's dead. The words tasted like ash. She died 2 years ago. A winter fever, they said. Theron reached out and took her hand. His skin was cold. Not as cold as before, but still far from normal. But when his fingers closed around hers, Senna felt heat bloom between their palms. Her power, rising to meet him. We'll find another way, Theron said. Aldrich knows the truth. When I catch him, I'll make him tell us everything. Despite everything, the fear, the uncertainty, the weight of 3 years of lies, Senna laughed. It was a broken sound, rusty from disuse, but it was real. And from the way Theron's eyes softened, she knew he heard it for what it was, a beginning. They stayed in the garden until dawn painted the sky in shades of rose and gold. Theron talked about his childhood, the brother who'd died in infancy, the father who'd tried to prepare him for a throne he'd never wanted. Senna talked about her mother, her real mother, Esme, who died in childbirth, leaving her in the care of a father who'd remarried too quickly and a stepmother who'd never wanted her. You should go, Theron said reluctantly. If someone sees us together like this, the rumors will start. What kind of rumors? The kind that suggests the king is courting the Deathbringer. He said it lightly, but something in his eyes made her breath catch. Unless that's what you want. Senna's heart hammered against her ribs. I don't know what I want. Then I'll wait. He raised her hand to his lips, a gesture so gentle, so unexpected, that she forgot how to breathe. For as long as you need. The kiss was brief, barely a brush of cold lips against her knuckles, but warmth exploded from the contact, flooding up her arm, making her gasp. When Theron pulled back, his eyes were wide. What was that? He breathed. Senna stared at their joined hands. Where his lips had touched, Golden light lingered like an afterimage, the same light that had destroyed Aldrich's wolves on the mountain. "I don't know," she whispered, "but I think my power is responding to you." "Responding how?" "Healing you." She looked up at him. "Every time we touch, the curse retreats. And the longer we're together, the stronger the effect becomes." Theron processed this for a long moment. Then, slowly, deliberately, he laced his fingers through hers. The warmth intensified. His skin grew warmer under her touch. "Stay with me," he said quietly. "Not as a guest. Not as a weapon. Stay with me because you want to." "Theron, I know it's too fast. I know you have no reason to trust me." His free hand came up to cup her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "But I've been cold my entire life, Senna, and you're the first person who's ever made me feel warm." She should say no, should pull away, retreat to her borrowed chambers, and rebuild the walls she'd spent 3 years perfecting. Instead, she leaned into his touch and said, "Yes." 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of mornings in the council chamber, arguing strategy with generals. 2 weeks of afternoons in the library, poring over ancient texts about binding magic and ice curses. 2 weeks of evenings in the garden, talking until the stars wheeled overhead. And 2 weeks of nights. It had started innocently enough. Theron couldn't sleep, and neither could Senna. They played chess in his study, the fire burning low. They walked the moonlit corridors, trading stories about their pasts. They sat side by side on his balcony, watching the city lights flicker below. But somewhere along the way, innocence had become something else. Senna noticed things now. The way Theron's eyes lingered on her mouth when she spoke. The way his fingers brushed hers a little too often to be accidental. The way his scent, pine and winter and something darker, made her wolf stir with interest. She noticed, too, how her power reached for him constantly. Every touch sent warmth flooding through her. The blue tinge had faded from his face entirely. His skin ran warm most of the time now, though the cold still crept back when they were apart. "The curse is in remission," Mira reported during one of her examinations. "I've never seen anything like it." But remission wasn't a cure, and the ice was still there, waiting. Senna was in the library when she found the answer. The book was old, its pages brittle and yellowed, written in a dialect so archaic she could barely parse it. But the diagram was clear enough. A human figure surrounded by symbols, with lines connecting each point to a central heart. "A soul bond," she breathed. "What did you find?" Theron's voice made her jump. He stood behind her chair, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "This text describes a ritual used by ancient healers to cure otherwise incurable conditions." Senna traced the diagram with her finger. They called it the soul bond. The healer would link their life force to the patient's, allowing their power to flow freely between them. And it worked? According to this, yes, the curse or illness would be burned away entirely. She hesitated, but there was a cost. There always is. What cost? The bond was permanent. Once formed, it couldn't be broken. The healer and the patient would be connected forever, sharing emotions, sensing each other's pain, unable to be apart for long without suffering. Senna turned to look at him. It was essentially a magical marriage. Theron was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "Could you do it? With me?" "I don't know. My power is still new, unpredictable. If I tried and failed, it could kill us both. But if you succeeded, then the curse would be gone. Forever." She swallowed hard. "And we would be bound. Forever." The word hung between them, heavy with implications. "Senna." Theron's hand came up to cup her face, tilting it toward his. "I need you to understand something." "What?" "I was never supposed to love anyone." His thumb traced her lower lip, making her shiver. The ice curse wasn't just meant to kill me. It was designed to freeze my heart before it could feel anything real. Aldrich wanted to ensure that I died alone, unloved. Senna's breath caught. But you... I feel things for you that I've never felt for anyone. His forehead dropped to rest against hers. When you're near me, the ice retreats. When you're gone, I count the minutes until you return. I find myself thinking about your voice, your laugh, and the way you argue with my generals like you've forgotten they could have you executed. A rough laugh escaped him. I'm falling in love with you, Senna, and I don't know how to stop. The confession shattered something inside her. Then don't. She gripped the front of his shirt, pulling him closer. Don't stop. When their lips met, the world dissolved. Theron kissed her like a man drowning, desperate and reverent all at once. His hands tangled in her hair, angling her head, deepening the contact until she couldn't tell where she ended and he began. Heat exploded between them, her power surging, his responding. And Senna felt the ice in his veins recoil. When Senna finally lay in his arms, both breathless, she felt the mate bond stirring between them. Not complete. Not yet. That would require a bite, a claiming, a surrender neither of them was quite ready for. But the foundation was there, golden threads connecting her heart to his, growing stronger with every heartbeat. This changes everything, Theron murmured against her hair. I know. But even as she melted into his arms, Senna couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The attack came 3 days later. Senna was in the garden, practicing with her power under Mira's watchful eye. The arrow came out of nowhere. It would have taken her through the heart if Theron hadn't appeared out of thin air, his wolf's speed propelling him into its path. Instead, the shaft buried itself in his shoulder with a sickening thud. He went down hard, and Senna screamed. Guards swarmed the garden, but the assassin was already gone, vanished over the wall like smoke. Senna fell to her knees beside Theron, her hands already glowing as she pressed them to his wound. The arrow was poisoned, she breathed. The same poison as before. Theron, they're trying to restart the curse. His eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw real fear in them. Then stop it. His hand found hers, gripping tight despite his weakness. Whatever it takes. Whatever the cost. Stop it. Senna looked at the ancient symbol burned into her memory, the soul bond, complete surrender, body, mind, and soul. There was no more time for hesitation. I love you, she said. I need you to know that. Then she closed her eyes, opened her heart, and poured everything she had into the man beneath her hands. The world turned to golden fire. The golden fire consumed everything. Senna felt herself dissolving into light, her consciousness stretching beyond the boundaries of her body. She could feel Theron beneath her hands, not just his flesh, but the essence of him. His fears, his regrets, his desperate love for a kingdom that had never truly known him, his loneliness, vast as an ocean, his hope, fragile as new ice, and the curse. She felt that too. It was a living thing, coiled around his heart like a serpent of frost. Old magic, corrupted magic designed not just to kill, but to torment. But now, there was fire to meet it. Senna's power surged through the connection between them, golden and relentless. The ice hissed and retreated. The serpent thrashed, fighting to maintain its grip. She opened herself completely. Every wall she'd built, every protection she'd constructed during 3 years of exile, she tore them down. Her memories poured into the bond, her mother Esme's death, her father's indifference, Dilara's cold cruelty. The day her power manifested. The morning she woke to find 47 bodies and brands seared into her palms, the guilt, the shame, the endless crushing loneliness. She gave him everything. And in return, she received him. Theron's consciousness rushed into her like a river breaking through a dam. She felt his first memory. warmth, safety. His mother Celeste's arms around him. She felt the moment that warmth ended, poison stealing through his mother's veins while he sat helpless beside her bed. She felt 15 years of suspicion, 15 years of knowing his uncle had killed her but being unable to prove it. She felt the night he'd been attacked, the terror of the curse taking hold, the desperate flight through the mountains, his wolf's instincts driving him towards something, someone he couldn't name, toward her. You knew, Senna breathed through the bond. Your wolf knew I could save you. My wolf knew you were mine. Theron's voice echoed through her mind, intimate and overwhelming. Before I ever saw your face, before I knew your name, it knew. The soul bond snapped into place. The sensation was indescribable, a tether of golden light connecting her heart to his, unbreakable and eternal. She could feel his heartbeat as clearly as her own. She could sense his emotions like colors painted across her consciousness. And beneath it all, warmth. The ice was retreating. Not just pausing, not just slowing, actually melting, dissolving into nothing as her fire burned through his veins. The serpent around his heart thrashed one final time, then shattered into crystalline dust. The curse was broken. Senna collapsed. She woke in Theron's arms. They were still in the garden. The arrow was gone from his shoulder, the wound nothing but a pink scar. And his skin was warm, gloriously warm, radiating heat like a furnace. You're awake. His voice was hoarse, rough with emotion. Thank the gods. You're awake. The curse, Senna managed. Gone. Theron's arms tightened around her. Completely gone. Mira checked 3 times. Relief flooded through her, and she felt an answering wave of relief that wasn't her own. The bond. She could feel him now. A constant presence at the edge of her awareness. I can sense you, she whispered. In my head. In my heart. I know. He pressed his forehead to hers. I can sense you too. It's the most incredible thing I've ever felt. The guilt you carry, Theron said quietly. About Thornwick. I felt it. All of it. Senna tensed. But I felt something else in your memories. Something you missed. His golden eyes blazed. When the fever took you, someone was in your room. You couldn't see their face, but you felt their hands on your wrists. You felt burning. Someone was branding you while you were too sick to fight back. The memory surfaced, hazy, fragmented, but real. Hands pressing her wrists to the bed. Pain searing through her palms. A voice saying, "This is for your own good." Delara, Senna breathed. My stepmother. She was there. She bound your power while you were unconscious. Then she told you the plague was your fault. But why? What did she gain? That's what we need to find out. Theron rose, pulling her up with him. You said Delara died 2 years ago, but Aldrich is still alive. Whatever connection exists between them, he's the key. There's something else, she said slowly. When I was in your memories, I saw the night your mother was poisoned. The witch who examined the evidence. Aldrich recommended her. Theron went very still. She had dark hair, pale eyes. She wore gloves the entire time. She had a scar on her wrist. A burn mark, shaped like a serpent. Senna finished, coiled around a dagger. Theron stared at her. How did you know that? Because I've seen that mark before. Senna's hands were shaking. On my stepmother's wrist, Delara had the exact same scar. The truth crashed over them both like an avalanche. Delara hadn't just bound Senna's power. She'd been working with Aldrich for decades, framing Theron for his mother's murder, creating the plague that decimated Thornwick, binding the one healer who could have stopped the ice curse before it ever began. She's not dead, Senna realized. Delara isn't dead. She faked her death and went into hiding. And Aldrich knows where she is. Theron's wolf rose to the surface, gold blazing in his eyes. We're going to find them both. And then we're going to make them answer for everything they've done. They rode out at dawn. Aldrich's stronghold was a fortress carved into the cliffs above the Blackmere Sea. They slipped through a hidden passage and emerged into a vaulted cellar. Voices drifted down from above. Told you he would survive? A woman's voice, sharp with irritation. The girl's power was always too strong to bind completely. Senna froze. She knew that voice. You assured me the brands would hold. Aldrich's response was cold. The soul bond changes everything. With their life forces linked, she can counter any curse you throw at him. Then we find another way. There is no other way. Dalara's voice rose to a shriek. The witch in the eastern provinces has been working on something new. A plague, a real one this time. Once it's released at the solstice ball, every wolf in the palace will be dead within a week. Senna's blood ran cold. Another plague, another massacre. We need proof, Theron breathed. I can give you proof. The voice came from behind them. They spun to find a young woman standing in the shadows. She was thin, pale, with dark circles under her eyes and a collar of iron around her throat. A slave collar. My name is Yara. I'm the witch Aldrich commissioned to create the ice curse, and the plague he's planning now. She met Senna's eyes. I'm also your half-sister. The world tilted. Dalara was my mother too. Yara's lips twisted bitterly. She sold me to Aldrich when my power manifested. I was 8 years old. I've been a prisoner here for 20 years, forced to create curses and plagues, including the one that destroyed Thornwick. Senna couldn't move. A sister. She had a sister. Thornwick. 47 dead. Not because of Senna's uncontrolled power, but because of a deliberately crafted plague created by a girl in chains. I didn't want to, Yara sobbed. The collar forces obedience. The collar can be removed, Theron said. If you help us stop Aldrich, I swear you'll be free. Yara looked up, hope flickering. The plague is already complete. Aldrich plans to release it at the solstice ball, 3 days from now. Can you create an antidote? I can. But I need to be free of this collar. Show me the runes, Senna said. The binding was the same magic that had been used on her brands. Senna's power rose without conscious thought. Golden light gathered at her fingertips. She pressed her glowing hands to the collar. The runes fought back. Pain lanced through her arms, but she pushed. The collar shattered. Yara gasped, hands flying to her throat. Light returned to her eyes, a soul no longer enslaved. Free, she whispered. I'm free. Now take us to them, Theron said. They climbed through the fortress in silence. The door at the top was unlocked. They weren't expected. Aldrich and Dalara stood by the fire, goblets in hand. Well, Dalara said, setting down her goblet. This is unexpected. Theron was across the room in an instant, hand around his uncle's throat, slamming him against the wall. Give me one reason not to tear out your throat. Because you need answers. I know enough. You killed my mother. You cursed me. You conspired to destroy my kingdom. By freeing you, Aldrich's smile was cruel. The curse was a mercy, Theron. A slow end for a man incapable of love. Senna stepped forward, power rising. You took everything from me. My power, my memories, my sister, my life. Dalara's expression didn't change. You were always too sentimental, just like your mother. My mother died giving birth to me. Did she? Dalara's smile was cruel. I married your father to access her bloodline. When her power passed to you, I eliminated the competition and raised you myself. You killed her. You killed Esme to steal her power. You should be grateful. I could have killed you too. Instead, you tortured me for 18 years. You bound my power, branded me, and exiled me. You let me believe I'd murdered 47 innocent people. They weren't innocent. They were witnesses. Dilara's mask cracked, revealing madness beneath. They saw Yara in the village the night before the plague. I had to eliminate them and have someone to blame. Senna's vision blurred with tears. 47 people, murdered to cover up a conspiracy. No more, she said. Her power exploded outward. Golden fire filled the room. Aldrich screamed as the light touched him. Theron stepped back, letting the flames do their work. But Senna's focus was on Dilara. There she is, Dilara murmured. The power I always knew was in you. Dilara's hand moved, and darkness shot toward Senna like a spear. Theron threw himself into the path. The darkness hit him square in the chest, and he went down with a cry of pain. The shadow was spreading across his chest, black tendrils eating into his flesh. The soul bond makes you vulnerable, Dilara said. Anything that hurts him hurts you. Stop. Yara stood in the doorway, holding a vial of something luminous and green. The antidote for the plague. One drop could save your life. She looked at Dilara with cold fury. Or I could pour it onto the floor. Dilara's concentration wavered. The shadows flickered. It was enough. Senna's power surged through the bond, pouring into Theron's wounds. The rot retreated. At the same time, she reached for Dilara with golden chains of fire, binding her hands, her feet, her shadows. You can't hold me, Dilara snarled. You are stronger than a bound, broken girl, but I'm not that girl anymore. She closed her fist. The chains tightened. Dilara screamed as the light seared away her magic. When the fire faded, Dilara collapsed, unconscious and broken. Aldrich lay nearby, similarly defeated. It was over. The trial lasted 3 days. Senna stood before the packed courtroom and told her story. Every detail, every lie, every moment of the nightmare she'd been living since she was 18 years old. She showed them her unmarked palms. She showed them Yara. She showed them the documents from Aldrich's fortress. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. Then someone began to clap. It spread through the crowd like wildfire. Applause, tears, shouts of vindication. The accused will rise. Aldrich and Dilara stood before the throne, shackled and broken. Aldrich of House Valdrin, you conspired to murder Queen Celeste. You commissioned a curse designed to kill the rightful king. You planned genocide against your own people. For these crimes, you are sentenced to death. Dilara of House Crane, you murdered Esme the healer. You enslaved your own daughter. You created a plague that killed 47 innocents. You bound and branded another daughter, destroying her life. For these crimes, you are sentenced to death. Dilara's eyes found Senna. I made you. No, everything I am, I created despite you. You tried to break me, and I survived. You tried to make me a monster, and I became a healer. Senna raised her chin. I am not your creation. I am your undoing. The guards led them away. That night, Senna stood on Theron's balcony, looking out over the city. Thornhaven glittered below, alive with celebration. The solstice ball had become a festival of truth. Theron's arms wrapped around her from behind. You should be down there, he murmured. They're celebrating you. We changed everything. Senna touched his face. I couldn't have done any of it without you. He smiled, that rare, genuine smile. There's something I've been meaning to ask you. Theron dropped to one knee. Senna's breath caught. I know we're already bonded, but I want to do this properly. I want the court to know that you're not just my mate. You're my queen. He produced a ring. Senna of Thornwick, will you marry me? Tears blurred her vision. Yes. The wedding was held at midsummer. Senna walked down the aisle of the Grand Cathedral, her gown trailing behind her like a river of silver and gold. But she saw only one face. Theron stood at the altar, resplendent in royal black and gold. Through the bond, she felt his love, vast, unshakable, and eternal. I found you dying in the snow, Senna said in her vows, a wounded wolf who should have killed me on sight. Instead, you became my salvation. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. I vow to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that faith. I was frozen, Theron replied. Not just by the curse, by years of loneliness, of suspicion, of keeping everyone at arm's length. And then you touched me, and the ice began to melt. You gave me warmth, Senna. You gave me hope. I vow to spend the rest of my life protecting the woman who saved me in every way a person can be saved. By the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife, alpha and queen, mates bound by love and law and light. Theron kissed her. The cathedral erupted in cheers. The months that followed were full of change. Senna established an academy for young healers, a place where those with dangerous gifts could learn to control them rather than fear them. Yara became its first instructor, her caller a distant memory, her power now used to save lives rather than destroy them. The families of Thornwick received formal pardons and reparations. A memorial was built in the village square, listing the names of all 47 victims with the truth of their deaths finally inscribed in stone. And in the palace of Thornhaven, a new era began. Theron ruled with Senna at his side, their bond making them stronger together than either could be alone. But the greatest change came on a winter evening, 1 year after their wedding. Senna sat by the fire in their chambers, one hand resting on her swollen belly. Through the bond, she could feel the new life growing inside her, a spark of consciousness, bright and curious, already reaching for the world. Theron knelt before her, his hand joining hers on her stomach. "Do you feel that?" he whispered. "Yes." Tears streamed down Senna's face. "She's so strong already." "She? I just know." Senna laughed through her tears. "Mother's intuition." Theron pressed his forehead to her belly. "Hello, little one. I'm your father. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never know fear, never know loneliness, never doubt that you're loved." The baby kicked. Senna gasped, then laughed again. "I think she agrees." Theron looked up at her, wonder in his golden eyes. "We made this. Together. We made everything together." Senna cupped his face in her hands. A family, a kingdom, a future. And it all started with a dying wolf in the snow. And a foolish girl who couldn't walk away. He rose and kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. Outside the window, snow began to fall. But inside, wrapped in warmth and love and the golden glow of the fire, Senna had never felt more complete. She'd spent 3 years believing she was a monster. Now she knew the truth. She wasn't a monster. She wasn't a victim. She was a queen, a healer, a wife, a sister, and soon, a mother. She was Senna, and her story was only beginning. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it and would like to support the channel, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment telling me what you thought. I read every single one, and they mean more than you know.